Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on your time zone, and welcome to Moral Compass 101. I'll take this chance and first say that I'm sorry uh, we didn't have a lesson last week. This was due to my job reschedule, and I hope you understand. Nonetheless, we'll continue with a brand new topic today. But before then, in the words of the psalmist, I have continued to praise the Lord ahead, and because He is always at the right hand, I have not been shaken. That's according to Psalms 16 and verses 8. Having said that, I'll do a quick recap of our last topic, where I demystified a long overdue misconception between two words, that is a mentor and a role model. Please request you, if you have not watched or followed our last topic, it was packed with a lot of facts and knowledge. Having said that, I also request you to please subscribe to Moral Compass 101 for gaining knowledge or knowledge acquisition. Comment so that we can interact, and please like and share so that we can spread knowledge collectively. So our today's topic is human being into bracket me, myself, and I, because I'm a human being, you are a human being. So what is this thing about human being? The phrase human being is an ambiguous term that invokes two different interpretations, namely being and becoming. Being as a noun and becoming as a father. That's interesting. Because of its dual nature, it implies both a state of existence, that is being, and also a progressive process of change, that is becoming. So let's first deal with the first phase of a human being, which is being. This is the facticity of humanness as a static identity that contrives an objective reality of a person's existence, that it's inarguable that a human being or a person is a human being, period. That is objective reality of a person's existence, that you are a human being. Then the second phase is becoming. Becoming is a transformative transcendence through humanism. A transformative transcendence through humanism, This is a progressive. What is humanism? Humanism is a progressive process of personal development, self-growth, self-actualization, and diligent pursuit of your purpose in life. So, at the being, we had humanness, just being a person, humanness. At the humanism, or at the becoming, we have humanism, a progressive process through personal development, self-growth, self-actualization, pursuit of purpose, and the like. In order to fully understand the concept of becoming, we have to first and foremost outline the Trinity of a human being. Just like God, whose Trinity is God the Father, God the Son, and God the Spirit, a human being is a triune of three distinct entities, namely the body, the soul, and the spirit. And I abbreviate the abbreviations to this Trinity of a man is BSS, body, soul, and spirit. It's worth noting that the commonality between the Trinity of God and the Trinity of a human being is the spirit. And we shall see why there is a common factor of spirit in God and spirit in man or in a human being. So let's start with the first phase or the first entity of a human being, which is the body. A body is an integrated physical structure that houses the entire human anatomy, which is the existential fact of humanness. That your body is just a physical structure that houses your heart, your legs, your eyes, your neck, your head, all the external and the internal, organs, all the external parts and the internal organs. So, humanness is a corrective static identity of being a person that aligns with the biological and the psychological species level reality of being a person. I think I just said that humanness is nothing more than being a person. Humanness is therefore a status quo that's applicable to people of all walk of life, regardless of their faith, their profession, their political ideologies, or even their socioeconomic status. That being a person is being a person. If you are in India, if you are in Japan, if you are in America, anywhere in the world, you're just a human being. You're a person. That is humanness. Then, the second entity of a human being is a soul. And this is where things get a bit interesting. The soul is an integration of the brain and the heart. Nonetheless, despite the fact that the soul is an integration of two physical organs, namely the heart and the brain, the soul is not physical. See, I don't know how to explain this, but that's the reality. The fact that this fact brings us to my definition of the soul. So according to me, the soul is the seat of personality and an infinite defined core of human essentiality that transcends physicality and hence eternal. And that's why the soul never experiences death. Times without number we have heard that, when somebody is declared brain dead, they are dead. When they are declared heart dead, they're dead. But the soul lives forever. It's perpetual. It's worth noting that the reason to why the vast majority of people believe that the soul is an integration of the heart and the mind is because, despite the mind being the non-physical aspect of the brain, it's the abstraction of the brain. Yeah, this is a belief among so many people that the soul is a combination of the heart and the mind. But mind you, why I don't believe so is because the mind is not physical. So the mind is the outcome of the brain. So the soul is the combination of the heart and the brain, but the brain is incumbent. The brain has to function, to release all its functions through the mind, through mindfulness. So, the effectiveness and the efficiency of the brain, which is the body's main control center that's responsible for processing sensory input and initiating motor outputs, is totally incumbent on your mind's ability, capability, and capacity to process your thoughts, your emotions, and your memories. See, the brain has to process your thoughts, your emotions, and your memories, and all these processing issue is where the mind comes in. The mind is the software that runs on the brain's hardware. The mind is considered to be an abstraction of the brain in the same way as software is an abstraction of a computer's hardware. So, the mind itself has to do the processes that are called brain processes. While your mind is an intellectual faculty, your heart is an intuition, an insight faculty, and both are determinants of your will that instigate your choices. Now, this is the relationship between the cordial relationship, the reciprocal relationship between your mind and between your brain and your heart. So, the heart is a source of desires and emotions that guide your will, while your mind provides logic to evaluate and justify the choices of your will. Now, the brain, through the mind, provides logic to evaluate and justify the choices of your will. So there is a pull and push between the heart and the brain, and that's why the heart is called this retro brain, and that's argument is factual because the heart bears 40,000 neurons. Like the brain bears 86 billion neurons, which are used, for the functioning of your choices, and your decisions. In other words, the will is the active force that connects the desires of your heart with the logic reasoning of your mind to produce an action called choice. Hence, both the heart and the brain are the determinants of your will. So, and that's why you shall tell somebody, can you do this or the other? Can you give me a decision of this, oh, give me some time, that time that person is requesting for, is the time for his or her heart to consult his brain so that the mind can come up, that combination of the brain through the mind and the heart can bring forth an answer. However, the interplay between logic and emotion is not a simple bilateral process, but rather a complex, integrated, consultative measure where logical reason and analysis from the head brain, I said the head brain, plus emotional processing, intuition, and autonomic also from the heart, that's the emotions, from the heart brain must come to play in order to produce an effective decision. I just said that's a consultative measure. There is always a consultative measure between your brain through the mind and your heart for you to come with a choice or a decision, an effective choice. In other words, An effective decision-making process involves an integration of logic from your brain and emotional intuitive input from your heart. These two systems must communicate constantly in order to strike a balance between the analytical, the head brain, with 40,000 neurons, and the emotional, no, the head brain with 86 billion neurons, sorry, and the emotional, that's the heart brain, with 40,000 neurons, which leads to a sound and a meaningful, fulfilling choice. That all your choices have to go through that whole process. It's not just a walk in the park. It's not as simple as yes or no. There has to be a consultative measures between your head brain and your heart brain. The fruition of viable choices and heartfelt mindfulness is what nurtures humanism, which is a progressive process of becoming. Humanism as a progressive psychology, as a progressive philosophy of life is not a fixed dogma or a static ideology, but rather an ongoing process of oneself into a prosperous, meaningful, and fulfilling future through constantly adopting new information, different life experiences, and observing resilience that helps to overcome different life challenges. Let me explain this. Humanism, we said, is not static. It's an ongoing process. And through this journey of life, you shall have different life experiences, negative, positive, neutral. You shall have new information, like I'm trying to give you new information, you know. And you also need to be resilient in order to overcome the challenges, because there are challenges in life. And all those things are the ones that makes a human being a being of becoming, if that makes sense, or a person or an entity of becoming. All those things are the ones that will shape your present and your future life. Your moral ethics conscience is the fundamental principle that contrives your ability, your capability, and your capacity as a potential value towards your present and future state of fulfillment. This must concur with the active process of making good choices that aligns with the pursuit of your purpose in life, and at the same time embracing egalitarianism and utilitarianism for the greater good of humanity. That as you proceed with your life, as you proceed with your becoming, there is a need also to uphold or to embrace egalitarianism, that's treating every person, as an equal, and utilitarianism, which is the aspect of making choices that will benefit the greater good of others. Your becoming should not be limited to your development, your self-development or personal development, self-growth, and self-actualization. It should also have a positive impact in the society. That's where the egalitarianism and the utilitarianism comes in. That you becoming should also, touch other lives positively out there, and that is the whole aspect of the soul. Now we come to the third and the final entity of a human being, which is the spirit. As the only commonality between the Trinity of God and the Trinity of a human being, the human spirit is an intercessor That's according to Romans 8, 26 and 27. And a highway of communication and requital, reciprocity, that sustains your mutual relationship with God through fostering a balanced interplay that depicts spiritual congeniality. That the Spirit is just an intercessor. That's biblical. Paul writes to Romans 8, 26 and 27. That when you cannot, communicate with God, when you don't have words, the Spirit will intercede for you. And the other thing is, when you have words, you have a highway. You have the Spirit as a highway. And that's why there is a spirit in man and there is a spirit in God. And those spirits are always in reciprocity and in requital for mutual benefits. And that's what depicts your spiritual congeniality with God. Compatibility and harmony between you and God comes through the Spirit. In the Gospel of John, chapter 4 and verses 24, we read the story. The whole chapter 4 talks about the Samaritan woman. But when we specifically go to verses 24, Jesus tells the Samaritan woman that God is a spirit, and he who worships him must worship him in spirit and in truth. The Spirit is the highway that you have to go through in order to access God. And that's why the commonality is there. There is the Spirit of God and the Spirit of man, and they are always communicating with each other. In closing, you are stagnated, or you're stagnant in your comfort zone of monogamy, ideology of human being as a static. If you are still stagnant in that mindset of monogamy, or just like that the word human being just carries only one meaning of being without becoming, you are static in your thoughts. And this is an inferior mindset that can only prove the objective reality of your existence, which is a bare minimum. If your perspective of human being is in absentia of becoming, please make today's topic a clarion call that will trigger a paradigm shift and foster a sense of becoming as a fundamental quest of your transformative transcendence from your mediocrity. So, you are not only a human being as a proof, you are also a human being who is becoming. Noting that human existence is fundamentally characterized by the agitation between our given fact and our radical freedom to transcend it, there is a substantive quest to constantly navigate this duality in order to live a meaningful and a fulfilling life. That, times without number, our human existence, our existence is only characterized, through just being a person. The fact. But there is the radical freedom that must be there in order to overcome that thought of stagnation. And the duo of being and becoming will make us live a meaningful and a fulfilling life. Nonetheless, the effectiveness and the efficiency of humanism is an overarching need that necessitates an interplay of concurrent and consecutive responsibility among all the three entities of a human being, namely the body, the soul, and the spirit, that for us to embrace fully the aspect of being and the aspect of becoming, there is a need to apply all these three phases must work, together in harmony. And these entities are the body, the soul, and the spirit. And we just outlined the functions of each and every entity that makes you a human being and gives you the mandate of becoming. Until next time, please stay safe. Blessings and shalom.